Good morning. Today we going to study the First Peter, and we keep going further, and we're going to study verses 15 and 16, and it's the ninth lesson, Sunday school lesson that we study at Thai Baptist Church on Sunday mornings. We talked about before that Apostle Peter wrote his epistle to Christians who were scattered abroad, who actually left their own home country because of the persecution, and they became the part of the pagan world because they had to leave to Asia Minor. But wherever they went, they were talking about the gospel. They were gossiping. It's what one of the words the New Testament uses, and one of the meaning, the gospel. It means it's not only preachers who preach the gospel, but it was just were common people who were really sharing the gospel because by their example and through their words. But they became the part of the churches in the future, but because they lived in a pagan world and because they live in a difficult time, Apostle Peter compelled to write the epistle to support them and to help them and to single out some major points for Christian life. And we talk about Peter, the beginning of his epistle, and he wrote about, try to explain about benefits of the Christian life, of all this glory of Christian calling. And then he put 9 commands for us to obey. And of course, this epistle written to Christians who love the Lord, because the Bible said that, and Apostle Peter said that you love him, though not seeing him. It's why we, his epistle meant to be written for those Christians who love the Lord, not those who argue how they're going to live in sin and not to sin, how close they're going to go to this cliff and not to fall down. They maybe want to live in the world. They love the world, but they just come to church and they call themselves Christians. So he wrote his epistle to Christians who love the Lord, who wants to live a Christian life, who wants to live a dedicated life, who want to pursue holiness, right? But he was writing the epistle to support them, to comfort them, and to encourage them to keep going further. This is what the major meaning of this first epistle. And today we're gonna stop on and talk about the 4th command. It's to be holy as He is holy. And the Apostle Peter wrote in chapter 15 and chapter 1, verses 15 and 16. But like the Holy One who called you, be holy yourselves also in all your behavior, because it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. Okay, and I want us to talk about that issue, that command. Everybody, the apostle said that you have to be holy in all behavior, because though the one who called you is holy, and the one who called you out from darkness into the light, and is God. God calls people out. And who is the Christian? A Christian is the one who has been called out from darkness into the light. And the one who calls, he is holy. He has his life. He has his principle of life. He has his ways, and he has his demands, and he is holy. And holy has a 2 meaning. A word holy in the Bible carries 2 meaning. The first meaning is sinless, without sin, completely without sin, holy, like holy angels compared to evil angels. When angels sinned, God cast him out from heaven and placed them into outer darkness. But those angels who choose not to follow Satan, they're holy angels. God created everything holy, like Adam and Eve were holy, but then they sinned. They were without sin. And with God, it's always two meaning. He is holy, right? But second meaning, it's set apart. God is set apart. God set himself apart from sin, from sinners. His presence, manifest presence, is in the holy place. It's not like in a downtown of Dallas or New York or Washington or another city. This manifest presence is separated from sin. And for in Old Testament, in order for God to come down in his manifest presence into the temple, they have to make sure everything built and people are met God's standards, because he is holy. He can just move, and be mingled with sin. He is holy, right? The Bible said, "For thus says the high and the exalted one who lives forever, whose name is holy. I dwell on a high and a holy place, and also with the contrite and the lowly of spirit, in order to revive the spirit of the lowly, and to revive the heart of the contrite ones." This is Isaiah 57:15. God said about himself, he is holy, and also he said about himself that he dwells in a high and lofty place, right? And this is the meaning, what the word holy means: without sin and to be set apart. And of course, for Christian people, we can't just carry completely two meanings, because we're not without sin completely. We're covered by the righteousness of God, but we ourselves, we live in a sinful body in this flesh, and we can't be completely without sin here on earth, or until Christ will come, or we and renew our bodies, or when we die. Only we can be completely sinless. But Apostle Peter, he telling people to be holy in all their behavior. And it's why for Christian people today, the more important, right, like, it's to direction. And of course, to second meaning of word holy is going to have important place in Christian life, to be holy, to be set apart. Okay, 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 14 and 18 through 18, from 14 through 18. Apostle Paul write about an separation for Christian people to become the separate holy people of God. And he wrote about these verses: "Do not become bound together with unbelievers. For what partnership have righteousness and lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness? Or what harmony has Christ with Belial? Or what has a believer in common with an unbeliever? What agreement has the temple of God with idols? For we are the temple of the living God. Just as God said, I will dwell in them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Therefore, come out from their midst and be separate, says the Lord, and do not touch what is unclean, and I will welcome you, and I will be a father to you, and you shall be the sons and daughters to me, says the Lord Almighty." That's what the calling of God. Every Christian who called by God, called out of darkness into the light, but been called also from this unholy world, unholy principles, unholy way of life into this separate holy way of life. And if you don't feel this calling, if you call yourself Christians, but you never compelled by God, never forced by God, never moved by God, never had any desire to be holy for Him, that is a not really good sign. Because God is the one who called you out, but He is holy. He can't just call you out, called you to Himself without giving you a desire and ability to move, to be more holy and dedicated and set apart for Him. And those people who don't have this desire, for those people who never had this desire, who never desire to live a godly life and move in along that direction, I don't know what kind of spirit is moving you. I don't know what voice did you hear. But if you hear the voice of God to call you out of darkness into the marvelous light, this voice of God is the voice of the holy God. And it's why we, because we're called by the Holy One, the Holy God, we have to be holy as He is holy in all our behavior. Okay. And we talk about a little bit more. God called us out of danger of unholy. Like in the Old Testament, God told people not to eat unholy animals, because to eat unholy animals is dangerous for people's health. Like, for instance, we even today we like rare steak, the beef steak, but people, they're not gonna eat rare pig, from the pig, pork steak. It's why, because pork is unclean animals, and unless you cook well, and you're in danger to get some kind of a germs. That's what the danger. And an unholy life has and carries its own dangers, like unholy life outside marriage, like unholy sexual life outside marriage carries some dangers, and unholy abuse of drugs carries some danger, real imminent danger, because it's unholy, of course, improper, in other words. And when people in hospitals, they use drugs because they can help people with a lot of pain to go through, or if they're in hospice, to die in peace and and not in a great pain. But if you use the drugs when you don't need to use drugs, you use them in proper way, and it brings a lot of danger. And in a lot of areas in our life, in the world, because they're unholy, because they're out of their limits, like unholy friendship, unholy covenant, unholy union in business with some kind of unbelievers who live according to their own standards, or marriage with unbeliever, it carries some dangers. That's why God called us to out of darkness into the marvelous light, but out of the danger of unholy. He wants to save us. He wants to preserve us. He wants to help us with our lives. And a lot of us who came to Christ, we came and realized that our life were really affected by sin, and life like been damaged by sin. But God called us out to help us to restore as much as possible. It's why He calls us out. And if we're not gonna come out, and if we're not gonna learn God's way, and don't have any desire to actually be holy, be separate, be set apart for Him, we in danger from this world, worldly ways, worldly standards, worldly abuse of good things, and etc. And also lusts. When we talk about lust, lust is desire, natural desire, which reach its limit, above its limits, and tries to control us. And um, like anything which any desire, any even normal desire, which reaches um, outside the natural proper limits, become desire becomes a lie, a lust, and this lust keeps us in bondage, and moves and lead us and control our life. Not we control our desires, but desires control our life. It's why we have to be careful. And of course, worshiping idols. Idol is a counterfeit of God, like something that God created people to worship Him, in Him, to find in Him refuge, hope, life, everything. But idol is a counterfeit, and this counterfeit is not neutral. If God is benevolent, idols always mm, opposite to that. They, if you worship idols, if you have something above God, if you put some hope on something above God, if like and if you trust Him, if you love and fear the idol more than you fear God, if it's something that will put you in bondage, and and will control your life. This is idols. Well, you can have clean, some sort of evangelical idols, but idols are idols. And if we dig the cisterns which can't contain water, broken cisterns, and leave the fountain of life, this is idols, but they're not benevolent or neutral. You will going to be in bondage to those idols, and they will control your life. This is mostly, but it of course it uh, God God's wrath on those who worship idols. But um, besides that, I behind any idol is Satan, is demon. It's what the Bible tells us, and it's why. But they not benevolent. They evil. They don't. They not only neutral, and it's why it's so dangerous if we worship idols. And every person, he worship himself. He likes himself. Everything is um, circles around himself, and and it makes our life so in bondage or to ourselves, to our last desires. But God is the one who calls us out to help us to live free, to die to ourselves. This is what God is calling. If we don't have this desire, if we don't hear this calling, if we don't really burdened by it, we need to ask the question: who is calling us? What voice did we hear? The voice of God, or just voice of the preacher? And if we heard the voice of God, we we will have we must have those desires, even if we fight them, even if we maybe uh, don't want to humble ourselves and be obedient, but at least we have those desires. We understand the importance to separate, to set our life apart as much as possible for Him, for new life. Everything, the old things passed away. Now everything new. It's what we have to understand. If we're Christian, we are new creation. Nothing inside us, in our spirit and our heart, is old. Everything is new, and it's why we have to. If we treat the Christian, if we see Christian life as we should, this is not life of indulgence and complacency and life in the world. This is life of a dedicated Christian, dedicated to God, the life which is set apart for his special purpose and his plan. And also God calling us into the standard, his standards. And not we, because he is holy and he has his own standards, he has his own life, he has his own kingdom. If we come out from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light, we have to understand that we're bound under to obey new rules, to obey new standards, to learn new ways, God's ways. It's what Apostle is trying to tell them. If you call by the one who is holy, just be holy in all your behavior. It means move your life to be more dedicated to God and look at your life from the point of that dedication. How is my life is going to witness to other people the greatness of the gospel? Is what I'm doing, is how I live, what I choose to be in the harmony of this great gospel I believe in, I accept it. This is what the main point, right? In Leviticus 11:45 and Leviticus 19:1 and 1 through 4, they talk about the same thing. For I am the Lord your God, and consecrate yourself, therefore, and be holy, for I am holy. And you shall not make yourselves unclean with any of the swarming things that swarm on the earth. It means he was talking about those unclean animals. Danger. In Leviticus 19:1 through 4, it says, then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to all the congregation of the sons of Israel and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Every one of you shall reverence his mother and his father, and you shall keep my Sabbath. I am the Lord your God. Do not turn to idols or make for yourselves molten gods. I am the Lord your God. It's what we talk about, that God not only calling us out, called us out of darkness into marvelous light, but called us into new rules, new regulations, new principle of life, new relationship, a new family. And if we're not moving the same direction, closer to God, to be dedicated, to be more set apart, then we need to ask the question, what kind of spirit and what kind of voice did we hear? Be holy in all your behavior. What does it mean, right? And in the first, it means to be blameless. It's not only deacon or pastor or somebody, some minister who's supposed to be blameless. Blameless is the way of life which lived the way that nobody can bring some blame. Like, for instance, if I'm Christian who live my life closer to the edge, like say how far I can go and live my life in the world without sinning, like how much I can, how far I can go. It's not a holy life. Holy life is to be far from this sin or from temptation as far as possible, not only because we're afraid of some consequences, but because we want to be closer to God, because we are new creation. And it's to be blameless. Like if we live our life and let a lot of stuff into our life, which still blamelessness, it's not a holy life. It's why a Christian, a person it's not that person who treats his life lightly. He treats his life really, really as important. And he treats his life as a life which been given to him to glorify God's name. And he's supposed to make choices. And he's supposed to build his life the way that his life would be blameless. Um, it's it's what we do. It's where we work. Is with whom we have relationship. Is how we dress, what we prefer, how much we spend time with somewhere, with what, with the Bible or something else. It's the glory of God, the that understanding that we are redeemed by Christ, by God through Christ, to represent Him in this dark and evil world. And the way we live, the way we build our life, or is going to glorify His name or profane His name. And today, world doesn't respect churches anymore, doesn't respect Christians, because Christians, because of the choices and their desires and their directions, they profane God's name. And even government today doesn't respect churches. It's why it's easy for the government to close the church. In United States, where a revival hit many times, where church who used to be so strong and influence the world, the country, and so on. But now we live in a time when people don't respect the church. People don't um, keep the church or Christian in high esteem. People don't actually think Christian people are serious, and a lot of and there is more cases for where children, young people of Christian parents, they go into the world to live a really non-Christian life, or they accept Islam or Muslim religion because they think that Muslims more serious than Christian. It is true, because Christian people who call themselves Christians, they don't live that life of holiness. They don't. They live the sinful life as much as possible. They indulge themselves in many things as possible. It's why if we call ourselves Christians and we live a life opposite to holiness, we profane God's name. And also we have to stay from, this is a principle of life. We have to, as a Christians, to stay from anything which can lead to the fall, to our fall. I it is not only like to watch something we shouldn't, but it's also like today it is popular. In our days, the Christian people, they go back, go away from that Christian life and introduce alcohol into the church. And I think it is also because they don't want to live the holy life. There is nothing wrong in alcohol in itself. It is not even sin just to drink alcohol. The sin is what is behind. Why we're doing it? Why? If we're depressed and we choose alcohol, we preach to the world that Christ can't help us. He can't give us joy. Alcohol only can. That's why we're doing it. Whatever we're doing, it's more important than the action. And sometimes, not even sometimes, often, why we're doing profane God's name even more than our action itself. And it's why Apostle Peter telling the church, those Christians who were scattered abroad, to be holy in all their behavior and all the action in their life and act and all the choices they make, because God is holy. Be set apart. And the Bible tells us that the one of the main goal of the Christian person is not just to escape hell. It's even not a goal at all. The goal is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. It means when I become a Christian, my desire is to be closer to God, to develop the relationship with Him, to be closer to Him, to walk with Him, to build my life with Him. And if it's not your desire, you have to re-examine your Christianity, the foundation for your Christianity. But the Psalm 23, we're going to read the Psalm, and verses 25 through 28. Whom have I in heaven but you? And besides you, I desire nothing on earth. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. For behold, those who are far from you will perish. You have destroyed all those who are unfaithful to you. But as for me, the nearness of God is my good. I have made the Lord God my refuge, that I may tell of all your works. This is what supposed to be in the heart of every Christian, relationship with God. This is the love for God, supposed to be the main, the drive for holiness, this fear of God, this good fear of God, mixed with love. He's worthy. He redeemed me. He gave his life for me. God himself came down, the second person of God came down and lived the life of a mere person and died, suffered and died for me. What is the great power for holiness? The cross of Christ. And if we don't want to live the holy life, it means the cross of Christ means nothing or very little for us. May God richly bless all of you who watch this video, who participate Sunday school, and I hope it will be beneficial for you, and see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.